India Legal makes the difference because we bring you only the news that counts.
India Legal, stories that count.
Hello and welcome to a special readout from India Legal magazine. This readout is the third in a series concerning the higher judiciary, especially the Supreme Court, and the subject is basically constitutional law, human rights, and the response of the judiciary to executive excesses. Our first in this series was an assessment of the challenges faced by our new Chief Justice, Justice Chandrachud, who has completed just over 2 months in office. The second concentrated on Human Rights Day. We brought out a special edition of India Legal and the meaning of human rights in India as well as the world. And now we bring you another essay on in the series, which focuses on Constitution Day in India. And again, we devoted a magazine, our special edition, to Constitution Day, which has been widely appreciated, and I hope as many people as possible will look for it on the net. That's at IndiaLegalLive.com and read its contents. I will just bring you some parts of what is in this special edition. India Legal, as you know, we are the nation's first politico-legal independent weekly focusing on controversial issues of national and international importance. The video readouts we present to you are the editorial's choice, as they are in this case, of the most significant stories we believe should receive close scrutiny and wide circulation. You can read them, or you can watch them along with the visuals, or listen to them as you would a podcast. Now, on Constitution Day in this special broadcast or podcast, we focus on giving birth to a nation, our nation, modern India. I've chosen this subject today because we dedicated this issue of India Legal, which I've just shown you, to this celebrated and hallowed secular text, the Constitution that is, in its evangelical message, as powerful as any holy book. The Indian Constitution, when we celebrated its adoption on November 26th, as we have done each year since 1949, I was left marveling as always how a mere treatise, a book authored by several diverse-minded human beings on preserving, administering, governing, dispensing justice, preserving liberty and variegated cultures, has survived the vagaries of conflict, injustice, inequalities, social divides, corruption, internecine violence, famine, pestilence, cruelty. No matter how many onslaughts it has suffered, the Constitution gifted to us by the mortals who became our founding fathers remains our divine Brahmashastra for the use of we the people against any forces that would try and destroy its primacy, and undergirding humanistic muscle and sinews that hold aloft India's nationhood. Our Constitution smiles down on us caringly. It beckons us to live by its ideas, and yet challenges us to improve it where we find fault or flaw. This particular issue of India Legal, this special edition which I just held up for you, pays homage to this document through a series of articles and events celebrating Constitution Day. In its pages, which I hope you will read either on the net or in the magazine, the Prime Minister reminds us of the preamble. The Chief Justice reiterates his commitment to jurisprudential reforms so essential to promote access to justice for all, and the critical role of the courts in supporting the autonomy of the institutions. Former Chief Justices and legal and academic luminaries who have gained world recognition also celebrate the wisdom and sagacity of the Constitution. Our founding fathers dedicated to liberty, social justice, the rule of law, freedom of speech and religion, equality of opportunity, were like the rishis whose knowledge was innate. The directive principles were, in a manner of speaking, spiritually inherited. Yet, the framers also studied European philosophers and the liberal intellectuals who drafted the guiding documents of America's freedom and governance. It is appropriate here for me to quote directly from the Journal of American Revolution. Remember, we borrowed many of our concepts based on the American Constitution and the American yearning from freedom from tyranny and human rights. So this is relevant on India's Constitution Day to recall the spirit that cemented a sister democracy, that's America, to a solid foundation. Now, I quote again from the journal, which says, and I quote, "The two greatest documents the American founding fathers gave to the fledgling republic, the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. People across the religious spectrum, from the most devout believers to the most committed atheists, look to these documents for support. Yet the blessings they offer are mixed. The Declaration contains several references to God and the Constitution. Constitution contains none at all. The reason for the variation, for this variation, the reasons reveal a great deal about the founding principles of the United States. The Declaration of Independence is an apology for revolution, support from a complete break with Great Britain, who was their ruler. Support for breaks with Great Britain was growing stronger week by week in the spring of 1776, both in the Continental Congress and the 13 colonies at large. These are what later constituted the American Union. On June 7, 1776, a resolution advocating independence was presented to Congress by Richard Henry Lee of Virginia, of the Virginia delegation. 4 days later, Congress, that's the American Congress, not a political party, but a collection of leaders of various states, who had been elected and who later founded the Constitution. Well, this Congress appointed a committee of 5 delegates to draft a document explaining the historic separation it would soon be voting on. The resulting Declaration of Independence, drafted by Thomas Jefferson and edited by his fellow delegates, contains a theory of rights that depends on a supreme being, not man, for its validity. The powers came from a supreme being and not from humans. The Declaration states that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is possible to see in these words an affirmation of the founders' religious faith, but God-given rights had less to do with theology in the summer of 1776 than they did with rebellion. Their Creator, the Continental Congress, endowed those rights with a legitimacy that knows no parallel in mortal sources. What God has given to man is not enjoyed at the sufferance of any monarch or government. Liberty is the inviolable birthright of all. The right of revolution proclaimed by the Declaration flows directly from the notion of inviolability. It is to secure people's divinely endowed and unalienable right that governments, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, are established. The people consequently have the right and indeed the duty to alter or abolish a form of government that becomes tyrannical. There's a lot to learn from this. This is your host, editor, Inderjit Badhwar. I'll see you again in another video. I hope you enjoyed this three-part series that began with Justice Chandrachud, included the Indian Constitution, as you just heard, as well as a longish piece on human rights and their importance, not only to India but to the world. Until next time, goodbye from now.
India Legal, stories that count.